And I think we need to start paying more attention as to how we're quantifying the ROI or like the return on the investment that we're putting in these AI agents. And I think even still to today, I think a lot of the conversation is around time savings and productivity. And I think we need to get past that, right? Because whenever people hear time savings and productivity, yes, sure, we might be making you a 100x marketer or a 100x researcher or a 100x insert your profession. But I think that branding becomes incredibly scary because I hear workforce replacement.
Yeah.
I'm going to get replaced by this machine and I'm not going to have anything to do.
Welcome to the AI CEO podcast, where the future of business is built today. I'm Seema Alexander, founder of Virgin AI, growth strategist, co-chair of DC Startup and Tech Week, and your host. In this podcast, I sit down with CEOs, industry experts, founders, and investors to tackle the big pressing questions on your mind about AI. No hype, no jargon, just insights you need to stay ahead. Now let's dive in. The AI CEO podcast is brought to you by Vergent AI, helping mid-sized businesses accelerate AI adoption safely. Ready to lead with AI? Visit vergent.ai to learn more. Welcome to today's episode of the AI CEO podcast. My name is Seema Alexander, and I am your host. I am so excited for this guest to be on today. We are going to be talking about traditional AI to where everything is today, the future of work, the future of agentic workflows, and so much more. I'm here to welcome Angela Virtue. Angela, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Seema.
Of course. So Angela is a professor at the Kogod School of Business for American University. You and I met during DC Startup and Tech Week. We had co-hosted an event with US Ignite, an AI and emerging tech salon with some incredible operators in the space and subject matter experts. And I remember you going up and talking about agentic AI, and we had this really cool go up for 10 minutes and have a discussion moment, and there was about 5 or 6 subject matter experts, and you really stuck out to me. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about your background, and then I'll guide you through this awesome dynamic conversation we're about to have.
Amazing. Yeah, so I started my whole AI journey back when I was studying in university. I was always really, really strong in math. And I kind of wanted to explore different avenues of how I could couple the strength that I had, which was math, but also with something that I felt engaged with and felt important to me. And I knew I would like spending a career doing. So during university, I really fell into that data science trajectory where I was doing lots of math theory and building neural networks and all of the math behind it and why it works and how it works. And then really started to couple that with the business side of things, right? I was going through this math curriculum and I went, but what does this mean? How would we leverage this really, really theoretical math concept and put it into a Fortune 500 company or into a business workflow? And I didn't really see the connection. So I stuck around a little bit longer, got my business master's degree in analytics itself. And in that program, I was really able to merge this really theoretical, dense content of tech mumbo jumbo of AI and merge it with those soft selling skills of here's how you implement it, here's how you'd operationalize this model and really incorporate it into these business landscapes. So after graduation, I went all in on startups. I didn't start my own, but I joined a lot of really growth trajectory companies. And is able to be, one of the first few employees and really start building from the ground up some of our data science or traditional AI
models, AI systems.
Exactly.
Okay, so first I want to just say, the fact that complicated math, I think I have a 15 and 11-year-old, they're always like, why do I have to learn this? Yep. And the fact that you're like, I need to make sense out of this. And then I love the marrying of what's the real business value, the business outcome, because that's what this whole podcast is about, right? It's there's all, and one of the things I just want to ask from the beginning, because I love level setting with people. And I love the fact that you're a data scientist, you're a business first person and a professor, so you're a teacher.
Yeah.
So tell me what the heck a neural network is. I know, but I want my audience to understand.
Yeah. So a neural network is basically this model that kind of mirrors how our brain works in terms of our decision-making processes and the synapses in our brains. And so it'll take and process a whole bunch of information. It'll then go into different offshoots based off of some kind of similarity or some kind of reason why these, orange M&Ms are together and these blue M&Ms are together and these yellow M&Ms are together. And I'll keep iterating and doing that same grouping process by some kind of attribute over and over and over and over again. And at the very end, you have some sort of decision or some sort of process that has happened, right? So if you kind of want to think of it in a more basic example, let's say you have thousands of pictures of dogs and thousands of pictures of cats. We can kind of start grouping them based on their attributes. So maybe we put all of the white animals together and all of the brown animals together and all the black animals together. And we keep iterating and iterating and iterating until at the end, we can kind of distinguish for a whole host of breeds, right? This is a dog and this is a cat.
So in general, for something like that to create a system around it, is the human giving it, like, what is the outcome that we're seeking, like the categorization, or is the network doing it?
So in a very traditional sense, it would be the network who would then do it. It's a very unsupervised learning method. So you have supervised models and you have unsupervised models. In a supervised model, I want you to think of it as like you take a quiz at school, right? Here's all these questions. You have the answer sheet. You can kind of check and see how you're doing as you go. With an exam, I'm taking those practice questions away. You get all new questions, but you also don't have the answers, right? And so you have to kind of figure it out and test it yourself and kind of make your own decisions. And so when you do that unsupervised learning process, like a neural network, we kind of just give you some data and we say, go, figure it out. And over time,
the machine figures it out.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
With more supervised traditional AI, that's where we bring in the you're right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And we give it the answers.
So let's talk about that for a second, the traditional versus the current state of AI, right? And then I want to get into your startup and sort of some of the use cases, pieces of this, right? When you first left university and you started in the startup space, right, you were creating AI systems, AI models, data models, right? This is before the large language models and the AI agent hype and all the things, generative AI, right? So give us a little understanding of what did that world look like, right? And now obviously we've gone a little bit, we're not fully mainstream, but we're at a different place when it comes to the cycle. So can you give us a little perspective?
Yeah. So when I first left university, joined all of these startups, we were in that, data-driven era where every single CEO, every single executive needed to use data to kind of back up their decision-making processes, because that's, to be very frank, where all of the VC funding was coming from. They didn't want to invest in companies that weren't using the data that they've aggregated or collected from all their users and just kind of like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what happens. Like they wanted more.
The spaghetti.
I know, the spaghetti. The spaghetti is great to start, but like as you start getting your funding, you need a little bit more rigor, a little bit more reasoning behind not just trying a whole bunch of stuff, but like we're trying this because of X or because of Y. So when I started, we really focused on the data that we already were collecting. For all of my companies, we had a mobile application platform, right? This was the era of low code, no code. Everyone has mobile apps. Mobile apps are the best thing in the world.
Can you share the name of the startup?
So the first one that I worked with was Full Measure Education. They were based out of DuPont, 3, 4, 5 blocks away from where we are today recording. And we were a mobile-first, honestly, ed tech platform that would help connect mainly community colleges with their prospective students and help navigate these students who are oftentimes first generation to kind of go through either the application process for community colleges, normal colleges, or just some of the, what is the word called? The trades, the trade kind of programs. And with the mobile application, we were able to communicate to students in their own language, right? Like no one who is a kid, who's a junior in high school right now even probably is looking at their email. Even my students right now who are freshmen, juniors, seniors, none of them want to look at email. I don't really blame them. But, in order to help give them the information and the guidance to get through the rigorous college application program, if you don't have it directly integrated into their high school systems already, how would you reach them, right? Social media, maybe, but a lot of community colleges don't really have the bandwidth to have a whole social content strategy to reach those students. And so where we kind of came in is we were like, hey, we'll build you guys a mobile application. will give you a channel in order to communicate and connect with these students in like the way that everyone's just staring at their phones. So we were able to give them text messages, push notifications, and really kind of change the channels and how we'd communicate with these students to get them through that process.
So where did AI play a role? Because I actually have two questions on that. Where did AI play a role in that?
Mhm.
And then at that time, you talk a lot about, these companies had data and they had to make decisions that was VC backed. But was that like leveraging Tableau? Like, was it using like some of the traditional ways of curating insights through data? So if you could answer those two, yeah.
So it's both, to be honest with you, right? And I think when I came in, we kind of didn't really have a lot. We had like an Excel worksheet that like, whoever the account manager was would kind of like look through and like really quickly try to figure out like how many downloads did they have and how many students are in the various parts of their individual application process or their pipeline. And so when I first came in, the first thing we really wanted to do was try to create some sort of just dashboarding, right? And I think dashboarding gets a bad rap because almost everything's a dashboard, but if it's not changing constantly, it probably could just be like an ad hoc sent report kind of a thing. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. So we partnered with, I don't even remember, they went out of business. I want to say Periscope Data at the time. But they were like a Tableau equivalent, cloud-based. And we were able to plug in all of our databases of all of the information that we've collected from all of these students for all of our clients and basically give them the metrics of how their application funnel was looking, right? So all of our dashboarding was very much about the metrics that the individual clients cared about, right? So we had that relationship and that rapport from the customer success side of the house set up and established and ready to go. Where we then implemented the AI was in how we communicated with the students. So what kind of messaging should we be doing? When should we be messaging them? What channel? How many messages are too many to when they opt out? And the opt-outs are the worst case that anyone wants because then we've lost that person, right? We can't actually contact them anymore. Right. So that's where the AI pieces really initially started to come into play, was optimizing the way in which we're communicating with all of the students.
Which is exactly what a lot of people should be doing right now with this new phase. So I guess my question to you is that is a perfect use case, right? What's the difference between the way you set that up then with sort of the new world of large language models and generative AI? Has anything changed? Does it make life easier in terms of setting up systems like this? And why is it important for CEOs and founders to understand?
So the landscape's completely changed. And I think it's because the AI systems now are democratized to where, anyone can go online, get access to these models, do a little bit of cleaning or a little bit of like changing to the model to make it fit their individual narrow use case. And then they're done. Like there you go. It's productionalized.
I want to go. I need to dig deeper into that. Like, what do you mean by that? Okay.
But in a traditional sense, right, you'd have to hire a team of data scientists. Yes. We'd have to go through all of the data. We'd have to clean the data. We'd have to run it through a whole bunch of models and test it and make sure that it's correct. And what's the accuracy? And are we being biased to any individual groups? And make sure that it's run through some rigorous processes. And then once we are happy and satisfied with this model, then it's time to go do the DevOps and figure out, well, how do we take this thing that's on my computer and put it into our system over here? And then with some engineering help, you get it in there. And then, it becomes a little bit of a bigger process.
Yeah, but you're speaking to, I feel like, some of the things that corporates, enterprises, medium-sized business should be doing still today, right? So I guess what I'm asking is like, in a sense of being responsible, in a sense of a workflow, right? So what has changed in a sense of like, things are easier maybe to put in systems, more accessible is what I heard from you, right? But there's still a need from a quality assurance perspective to ensure data, for example, is clean, right? Or bias and whatever from a responsible AI perspective, those things are still important, I would think.
Yes. But I think as we have a bigger conversation about the agentic versus the traditional, right? Yeah. In a traditional sense, like I would physically have to be the one at every single step of the way to do all of the work. And as we start looking at this agentic workflow, I can actually create an entire orchestration where I can take each of my individual tasks of this very traditional machine learning workflow, assign it to a little AI who will actually go out, get all of the data, do some data validation, give me the validation, and then stop, right? And when it stops, it'll ask for some human intervention, right? So I'm now, instead of the one doing all of the individual work from each step, I'm now kind of the manager overseeing my entire team of AI intern armies, if you kind of want to think of it in that way.
Hey, Angela, I mean, that's exactly how I want to think about it. And that's exactly how people need to start to think about it, is that all the time it took you to set up something that was such an important tool for business, now you can do through artificial intelligence today and the way things are set up and do the quality assurance through humans in the loop. Is that fair to say?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. So can we talk about use case after use case? That's, I love when you and I were chatting. I love the fact that you are teaching, college age students about AI, all the foundations, and specifically the business value and what it is, because we're going to talk a lot about the future work, because that's going to be a big implication, not only on the kids, but on, the businesses themselves and what that all looks like. So if you could just share with me, like, if I was a CEO, right, what is maybe the top 3 things I should really be thinking about in terms of use cases for AI that are just like baseline use that would change my business?
I think specifically for the smaller, medium-sized companies, first one's marketing copy. And I know that's a hot topic. If we have any marketers listening, they're probably like, their ears are bleeding having me say that. The second one, I think, is sales and like pipeline just workflows. For the third one, I'm gonna put a caveat on it. I'm gonna say customer service. But I think there's a very, very stark line between using it in a good way and using it in a way that's going to turn all of your customers completely off of you.
So let's talk, and I love these because these are 3 very functional use cases. We haven't gotten to the innovation side, right? And this is sort of when we have urgent, like, go in. That's the first thing we say is like internally, like, let's focus on the functional areas and what can we make optimize or automate so that the stuff that's taking you for a really long time, that has like a lot of repetitive motion, those things can actually be automated and trained for your business or your brand. So maybe let's start with marketing. When you say marketing copy, obviously today we have ChatGPT as just a baseline, and there's multiple others, and some of the larger companies are now have enterprise versions of the ChatGPT. So what's the best way to use AI for marketing copy from your perspective?
So I think there's a few ways in how you can think about it. So the first way that I think about it is, if we already have an established marketing team, we already have an established voice, we already have an established brand and assets, I think the one thing that it can really do a lot well or quickly, I don't know if that's the right way to say that, right? But the way that you can do it really, I don't know.
Optimized.
Yes. So the way that we do it optimized is you can have it maybe just start as a complete stage 0, write all of your SEO tags, right? It's like the part that it can kind of go do its thing, figure out the keywords, you give it the keyword maybe even, and then it can come up with all the SEO titles and subtitles and things to help make all of your content that you've already created more visible to everybody else. And that's your goal as marketers, right? Is you need all this stuff to be super visible. I think as you get more comfortable with it, you can create an entire AI agent orchestration, right? And I'm using orchestration kind of carefully here, because I think as we think of an AI agent, right now where we are today, you don't have one AI agent do all of those tasks. You'd actually have multiple AI agents, each doing one very specific job in this marketing function. So if we wanted to think of this pretty big picture, we already have a whole bunch of documentation, right? We have blog posts, we have social media campaigns, whatever it might be. You can have your AI ingest all of your previous work to understand your brand and your voice and the content and the structure and the style. You then can say, here's this new topic, or here's this new piece of content that we want to make. We want to make an article about why elephants being pink would be great for our company and why you need it too, right?
Yes.
The AI will go, it'll start drafting its little blurb about it. It'll be in the style of all of the past documents that you've written. And then on the third pass through, you can use all of the files that it's already ingested from your company, and it can try to identify now ways you can cross-reference or cross-link some of your prior posts, right? And then at the very final end, you can have it draft it all up. It goes to Google Docs or whatever your platform is, Notion, whatever. you're using to draft your content. And then it'll say, here's our first pass. How'd we do? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And then that's where you now, instead of needing to create all of this stuff off the cuff, brand new, it'll have probably 80% of it done. You go in, you edit a few things, you rewrite a few things, and you now have some content. If you want to take that one step further,
please. I love this.
You then, let's say that's for your blog. You could have another AI that takes all your blog posts and then chunks it up to be more suitable for LinkedIn or any of your other social channels, right? So now you have this like universalness of all of the content that you've had, and it can then be digestible in each of the appropriate like social content.
So I'm going to put this in just to anchor it for Vergent, right? Like we are actually creating a social media agent specifically. And on top of everything that you just said, I'm like, okay, what's Jesse's personality? Jesse's my partner and CEO. I'm the president, right? So, and our AI builder is helping create this for us. And I'm like, it's one thing to have content and personality and brand, but if you're also building out founder-led marketing, for example, right? Or thought pieces or perspectives, the way I speak and who I'm speaking to is very different than the way Jesse speaks and who he's speaking to, right? So like, and I to make things practical and actually usable, you have to think about the user on the other end and sort of the tone and the voice of the user as well. And I think so that you stepped into the world of AI agents, which we're going to get to, but I want to go one by one, and I promise you we'll get back to that. But like, I want you guys to kind of just pause and understand what Angela just described, right? Because when I started to understand the world of this next phase of AI automations, AI agents, I was like, wow, like the power in what is possible today. We're redefining the way work is, right? We're redefining the way that the humans will have to interact with brands, with people, in general, as they're building their businesses. What's important to understand is that this is possible today. Right?
Like right now.
Exactly. It can be custom built. There are definitely some tools out there, won't be as trained to you and personalized and customized. But the fact that this is out today and some of your competitors are probably already using it is really important for you to step back and think about, what do we need to be doing right now? And that's why I like these 3 anchors that you gave. Let's get into sales. Okay. So a lot of people I need a business development, like a sales development agent. I remember talking to a lot of investors in the space, and they're like, we're looking to invest in vertically integrated AI, and sales reps were one of them, right? So how would a business think about curating? Because it's like relationship based in certain ways. You don't want to sound too salesy. So can you kind of walk that through with us?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I actually want to take one step backwards for a moment. So I think as we're thinking about all of these examples, whether it's marketing or sales or any other operation that we want to kind of automate with AI or with the help of AI or 10x with AI, which is what you're going to hear almost probably exclusively for the next year. I think there's 2 kind of key pillars, right?
I say 100x.
100x. All right, even better. You're better than me. What can I say? More?
It's true. I'm like, it's true. Okay, go ahead. I only claim what's true, Angela.
As we think about any functional area, how I really like to approach it is like, let's go through your existing workflow. Let's go through your existing day in the life, right? When you wake up and you're a sales agent, like what do you do, right? And as you think about all of the steps and all of the processes that you do, I think you can think of the things that are really, really high touch or really, really important in terms of building that relationship and that connection. But is there a way then in which you can start to automate some of those processes because they're really, really time consuming? And so one of the easiest wins that I think you can get from a sales team is sending those follow-up messages, right?
Hey, all the follow-up. It's the vein. It's like you're networking, you're doing all the things. You're like, oh my God, these 5 people. I literally was at this awesome conference the other day and I was like, I got to write those emails.
And the more days that pass from the time that you were at that conference, the more you go, wait, what was the thing we talked about? Was it him or was it the other one I was talking with, right? And so as you have all of these notes, especially if you have like an enterprise level system, you have all these notes already in place and you can have a system basically go in and automate and say, hey, let's take our conversation that I had with so-and-so. Let's pull the 2 or 3 key, impacts or key insightful findings that we had from that conversation. Let's draft a follow-up email that says, in like a light, friendly tone. Hey, like it was great meeting you at blank event, fill in all of the rest of the details.
Yeah.
And it's this like warm lead that you can kind of nurture. So I think as you think about this lead nurturing, a lot of that can be at least 80% done with the AI. Again, I wouldn't at this moment trust and just say, okay, go do whatever you want to do, go send all these emails, right? But at least it can be, you open up your email, you open up your Salesforce instance, and it's like right there, already done, thumbs up, thumbs down, we're good, change a few words, call it a day.
Yeah. This is, literally this follow-up, like just, I want you guys, I say 100x, Angela, because I'm serious, right? Like when you don't follow up on a lead that might be hot, you lose out.
Mm-hmm.
You lose out. You don't know the potential of that client or what was possible, right? But if you had something that you automated and it was doing it for you,
Yep.
It's just from a productivity perspective, right? It just makes sense of like having something put together like this that's not once and done, but the human is still in the loop, right?
Yeah.
That is allowing you to kind of do the quality assurance and the test. I do have a question there around personality. So do you feel like, because again, some folks may be like, I need to make it more personal. I need to do this. Is it a training thing? Or is it that the human always needs to look at that email? Or can the AI consume all the previous emails this person ever wrote? And so then it has a better understanding of how to respond.
I think it's a mixture of both. And I think it really depends on how you want to implement this within your own company. I'm very pro human in the loop, and we can probably touch on why a little bit later on. But for me, it feels, even if it's like an email automation, I at least want someone to have written that draft then, right? Like I want at least one set of eyes on this thing before we just boop,
send it out
to the world, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to take things back once it's out there.
100%.
So I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you.
Well, I think one of the biggest things I hear from CEOs and founders is like, Seema, like this stuff is awesome, but 3 years from now, I don't want to be in the news, right? And it's those moments of like, I like for now, human in the loop is one of the most important steps and just incorporating in your workflow because you need that quality assurance, right? I think I have a question actually with those first two examples. Is there a risk of hallucination when you're trained in AI for a specific task?
100%. Like these
And
AI
why?
systems are not perfect.
Okay.
They will almost always hallucinate. They are very bad at saying, I don't know, right? So even if they go to you and you give it the QC, it's still kind of on
QC?
you. Quality control or
Okay.
quality check.
I say quality
Sorry.
assurance, so QA.
Okay.
But okay, yes,
The
QC,
quality
QA.
check.
Yeah.
Or the Q, what you're supposed to be, QI, I
QA.
guess.
So even if we have the Q&A, you're saying even if it's trained in a sense of like, do not send financial information, do not like, because I know that mitigates a lot of like the internal prompting, the way that you're really focused on constraining some of the AI is such an important thing that will mitigate the any opportunity for hallucination. So you still don't think even with all of those constraints that hallucinations would never happen?
Correct.
Okay.
I think you can probably get to like 95, 99% confidence that it's not going to do those things. But I don't know. As of right now, and where we are in our development of the AI, I would highly question anybody who says it's 100% accurate all of the time.
Even if it was your mini language model that you made with your own content?
Yeah.
How come? Like, what's the backstory of the technology that you could share with us?
So, twofold. One is, in a very traditional sense, what these large language models are doing is they're taking every little piece of written text, every piece of information that it can find, the internet, possibly some copywritten works. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Not even possibly. It's possible.
It's going through the legal courts right now. So I'm saying,
Sure.
theoretically, but 100% they are. Anyway, they're like gathering vast amount of these written works. And they are understanding how the human language is structured, what the probability is that these words are kind of put together. And at the end, when you have something like a ChatGPT where you are interworking or working with the AI system, it is doing its best job that it can in this mathematical, probabilistic sense of giving you the right answer. And we can add context agents. We can try to prompt it and kind of force it to do the thing that we really, really want it to do. But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of math in the back end and it's doing its best, right? But at the end of the day, it can still be wrong. So even if you have your own closed system and you're not using one of the large language models from, OpenAI or ChatGPT, any of the big ones.
So you're a micro language model, call it.
If you're a micro language model, you're then going to run the risk if you don't actually have a huge corpus, right? You're only hyper fixated on this one really, really small event. And so it's going to be overly confident in that one event. So in a more traditional predictive analytics method, a very similar problem occurs when you want to predict rare events happening. So a lot of times this happens in the fraud world, right? If we're thinking of credit card fraud, how many times do you think on average you swipe your credit card, is it actually a fraudulent transaction?
Are you asking me?
I mean, like less than 1%, right?
Good.
Like every now and then you might get a text message from Discover or Cap One or Bank of America going like, hey, I saw you just had this like $1,000 purchase at Home Depot. And like, you definitely aren't the home fixer-upper type. Like, was this
I'm
you?
like, is that bias?
Is that
I
you?
Six Fences? Just kidding.
And so in that case, if I really wanted to, I could create a fraud model that would have 99% accuracy. And all my model would do is say it's not fraud. Would that be a helpful model? No, because we're not capturing any of the fraudulent activity or the fraudulent transactions, but it's right 99% of the time. And so as you have those more micro models, a lot of times it'll be hyper accurate in this very, very small specific niche. But if you ever want to kind of get a little bit more creative or think outside of that box, it like freaks out. I can't do it.
So let's go back real quick to the fraud detection, because in that particular case, it's like 99% of the time, it's not fraud. So it's always going to be 99%, but really we wanted to find those 1%. And going back to your original conversation, our original conversation about neural networks and finding patterns in the data, isn't that what we're trying to do, is figure out where that 1% outlier is? And how is that possible today?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of different resampling methods that can occur where you can either undersample or oversample or basically retrain through some reinforcement techniques where you say, okay, what fraud have you found? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And then as it correctly identifies the fraud cases that you have known about, you can say, yep, good job, AI, you did it, right? Or you want to think of it as like potty training a toddler, right? You give them an M&M when they like go to the toilet instead of not, right? The same kind of process occurs. Like you want to reinforce the good behavior and then kind of say, hey, this one's not quite right.
I love that. How do you do that? You just, I mean, it's like not verbally, but I don't know. You just say like, that's actually right. Good. And good job. Because I actually love being nice to my AI. So like, but in all reality, like how do you reinforce good patterns?
So if you think about in ChatGPT's interface, like almost every single chat that they give you, they have like a little thumbs up, right? And so every single time you click that thumbs up, that's like reinforcement cookies. And you're giving the AI an M&M saying like, good job, you did the thing. I like this. And then as over time, as you keep liking things, it'll start tailoring the information to be more about what you've liked and engaged with in the past. You can kind of think of it as the same way of like social media algorithms. Like the more you engage, the more you like certain content, the more you see that type of content. And I think this is a total aside, but I think the social media algorithms are some of the most encouraging ways to get you all comfortable with that idea of reinforcement learning, right? There's this sense that you go to your For You page and it's like, well, why am I getting this content? You're getting this content because you engage with it.
That's right.
Right? If you don't like it, if you really wanted to wake up tomorrow and say, I want rabbits all over my phone. I want funny rabbit videos, right? You could go in your search and you say rabbit video. You could watch that video. You could rewatch that video over time. And then as you go into like your For You page or whatever, you can scroll and swipe away as quickly as you can if it's not a rabbit. And maybe if it's a dog or like another animal that's similar to a rabbit but not quite, you like linger for a little bit. And then over time, the algorithm will go, hey, you really like rabbits. Here you go. Here's some funny rabbit videos. And that's the same process that's happening with all the other AIs.
Yeah. No, I love that. And Gary Vee is so funny because he's big on social media in terms of digital footprints and how do you create organic traffic. And you know, he gets a lot of this like, social media is the worst. And he's like, the thing is, it's what you're engaging in.
Exactly.
And he's like, all you got to do, and he says, go to your For You page and just start to like 5 things that you want to switch it to and keep doing that. And guess what? Tomorrow morning, your algorithm will change because, and that's the thing. It's like people, but I love that anchor because it makes sense. Right. And I think this whole podcast is about anchoring things to what's happening today. I do a lot of anchoring to the days of the internet and where AI is today. And I know you and I share that when we'll talk about the future of work. But let's get into the sales.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we did the sales. Sorry. Let's get into the customer service, right?
Yeah.
So what's your, there's a lot of, literally, and if you talk about what you're reinforcing on Instagram, I tell my friends, I was like, I'm a nerd because most of those things on my Instagram are AI related. And and I'll just like share all my stories all the time. And I'm like, people just must think like, what does Seema do all day? But I was like, yes, I'm a nerd. It's okay. I love it. But to that point, customer service stuff comes up all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many variations. If say I didn't go with any tool and I was creating my own custom tool, what's the best use case there?
So I'm going to start with a really hot take. We don't need more AI customer service chatbots. Like, none of your customers are asking for it. Nobody, like, unless your customers are like banging down your door saying, you know what, replace all the people. I want to talk to an AI.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need it. Like, I've seen so many really bad examples of using AI chatbots for customer service. I think the most memorable at the moment for me is Amazon, actually, right? Like, I had a package, it went missing, like didn't show up. I go to the customer service and like, hey, I need help with this order, right?
Yeah.
You go to the AI chatbot assistant. I need help with this order. And then lo and behold, you just get stuck in this infinite loop of just questions with this AI chat. And you're just like, no, like give me a person then. Like you can't solve this one for me. Like I need someone else. And it's like 10 minutes later, I'm still talking to this AI chatbot who can't do anything. Anyway, very frustrating. And I think as we think about implementing AI into our companies, into our businesses, we really still have to be customer centric, right? That's not the user experience that anybody wants or anybody is requesting. So as we rethink that customer / AI merging, what we need to think about really, really carefully is, what do we want that AI to do? Some of the most successful implementations of those AI chatbots are not necessarily answering all of the questions off the cuff, but rather it will take a first attempt, maybe refer to some example help documentation that already exists and is already written. And if that first answer, that first pass through doesn't get it, it will then route the customer who has a question to the appropriate agent or the appropriate person.
So right away. So it's just like a good customer experience.
Exactly.
Right.
Where if it is this low-hanging fruit, like, oh, I've forgotten my password. How do I reset my password? Or I don't know, something like light that like there is for sure a help page that says, here's how you request a lost password, or here's how you do this one thing. Great. Okay, good. We didn't waste our actual agent's time with like such a small ask. But for anything else that like that first pass through doesn't get, let's just route it to the appropriate person. Yeah. And as it does that routing, I want you to think of it as almost like a newspaper, right? Like we have a newspaper full of articles. You read one article. Is that article in the business section or the sports section or the world events section, right? And as you kind of think about that like label classification, that's what that AI orchestration is doing, is it's taking Seema's request of, hey, I need help because all of my data's gone, or like whatever. I don't know what happened, right?
Right.
It tries to answer it. Maybe it's unsuccessful. And then it routes you to the appropriate team or the agent who has that expertise.
Yeah. I love that because it's a very low-hanging fruit. It's a way not to get caught up in a feedback loop. It's a way to change the way customers feel about your brand. But like, I think when I was first exposed to what maybe it's not possible today, but what will be possible, and sort of like and this is kind of what I want people to think about is like, what are the most frustrating parts of customer service, right? And I remember I've shared this example before, but like I was on the Intuit website, MailChimp, right? And then like you're getting on and again, you're in that feedback loop. And I think some of the stuff that you explained, I'm very curious, what's AI driven versus the traditional, like here's a spreadsheet with all the questions and all the answers, right? Because that's where you really get into the feedback loop. And it's like, here's the 3 questions. I'm like, that's not what I'm asking for, right? But in the future, using machine learning, right, they'll have better answers to your questions so things can be. And then the second part is kind of this multimodal piece of like, there are a couple aspects that I love that will be possible. I don't know about today. So one of the things is like, like say you're interrupted because the phone hangs up or the internet hangs up or something, right? And you're like, oh my God, I have to start over. That was 35 minutes of my life that just got taken from me. But in the world of AI, there'll be memory.
Mm-hmm.
And that the AI will remember your transactions to a point, if they train it right, be like, it become personal, right? And call you back or whatever it may be. And then on the last note, which again, I think phase 3 and 4, wherever we end up, right? But if you're interacting with the brand and there's some sort of privacy indicator of who you are, your identifier, then no matter where you're kind of interacting, the brand will know you. And then that's the new next level, next phase of sort of seamless customer experience. So I would love your take on, where we're really at. Like you share something that's low hanging fruit, and I love that because it's like, start here. Don't go boil the ocean, right? But what do you think is going to be possible? Because this is an area that a lot's going to change.
Yeah. So I think it's exactly what you said. Like that's where I think we'll be by the end of 2025. Maybe that's a little early, but I think the next big thing that we'll see in this customer success world is that there's no longer really like anonymity. I think that's how you say that.
That's a right word.
You can't be anonymous.
That is the right word.
But you basically can't be anonymous, right? Yeah. There are AIs out there right now that can basically take your information, de-anonymize it.
Yeah.
And then what it can do is link it back to all of the databases of our customers, right? And so this then kind of goes back into sales and it goes back into marketing and it touches all aspects of the business because now it can be this very boutique custom experience with every individual who comes to your company, right? We'll aggregate all of this data about you. We can have an AI agent basically go web scrape and get as much information that we know about you. We can cross-list to say, what events did we maybe see you at? Are you net new, right? Like we can see exactly from this singular customer where they are in our life cycle.
Yes.
Bring in all this outside data and then pinpoint exactly what product or service we should first target with you, right? And so like that's where like sales and marketing and customer service kind of like goes together, where it's now every part of the business is this very niche customer first world where we kind of know everything and nothing about you because you haven't told us anything, but by just showing up, you've told us everything.
Yeah. And I want to add a predictive piece, right? Because I was talking to some folks who were in like cyber and they're like, we look at like our past customers or past clients and where they've had issues and challenges like in their systems. And if we get red flags for another customer, we can say, hey, by the way, if you're already looking here or this is your problem, make sure you look into these things. So just imagine if now the customer service rep is proactively giving you suggestions or recommendations on a challenge you're already having or you may just about to have because they already know, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's those next levels of customer service. It's like Zappos back in the day, right? Like, they gave you free surprises and free delivery and it was just wow moments. And the people who really dig deep into what AI is possible with customer service, not just some of the baseline, they're going to wow the crap out of their customers, right? And that's where it's loyalty. It brings people, back over and over again, builds retention, right? Builds brand ambassadorship. It's like, wow, they're doing it right, right? Yeah. That's what I want for people. Is like I want them to know like what does right mean, right? It's subjective and there's going to be testing and some failures along the way, some hallucinations, which, that's another whole situation, but that's kind of where it's going. So that was really good. Thank you for that. Let's talk about generative AI before we get back into AI agents. I know you've already referenced it. So in those systems that we're already talking about, isn't some of that already like a Gen AI play? Again, let's compare it to the traditional data science models, the predictive analytics models, the stuff that you used to do in a way, or you probably still do. Like, I don't want to take that away from you. Foundations that you use today. What changed with Gen AI?
So there's a few things, right? I think at some point we might need to do a little level setting on like what our definitions of these things are.
Why don't you start there?
Okay, so
let me ask the question. What's the definition of
AI?
Of AI. Okay, let's go back. Okay, let's go back. Let's go way back.
Machine.
What's the definition of AI, Angela?
So, again, this is probably the most universally accepted answer amongst most people is that AI is any kind of program or machine that can do something that typically would require a human, right? And this definition goes all the way back to like the 1950s. Like this is not new. This is how like it's always been perceived.
Yes.
And that's to be very frank, we've always been using AI, at least for the past 10, 15 years. If you think about anything internet-based, everything now is all using AI.
Mhm.
Any recommendation system that you see, the end of Amazon carts where it goes, customers just like you also bought blank, right? That's an AI system itself.
Right.
Now, that is typically in what is considered like the traditional machine learning, predictive analytics space, where we're gathering all of this data from various sources, training some sort of model based off of that data to build profiles or to build those similarities, or kind of what I was talking with the neural network, right? Try to figure out from all of this data, where do these things kind of fit like a puzzle? And then have some kind of,
categorizing.
right.
Yeah.
And then have some kind of outcome,
Mhm.
right? So if it's a Netflix algorithm, or if it's your social media algorithm of like, here's your recommended next shows, or people like you also watch this thing, right? That's all an AI system that we've been living and breathing and involved with for the past, however many years.
Yeah. So then, generative AI.
Yes.
What is it?
This is where I think everything that happened back in 2021, 2022,
yeah,
with
2022.
ChatGPT and OpenAI coming
Large
out to
language
play.
models, yep.
So these large language models aren't super new, to be honest with you. Like, that technology goes all the way back to, probably 20 plus years. But in 2015, Google had a research article basically explaining transformer models. And that's then the basis of all these large language models. And, since 2016, I, as like a pretty tech savvy person, could go get an API endpoint, kind of like leverage these existing large language models, but they weren't very impressive because they were the first iteration, the first version. I could kind of sort of use something with it, but like, kind of novel, right? It was like a novel technology. In 2022, OpenAI releases to the entire public this generative AI technology. I don't know why I'm using air quotes, right? But this generative AI technology to the masses.
Yeah.
And what that did was create this democratization of this technology that once was only accepted by people like me, who could kind of nerd out on a weekend and
The
go
coders,
leverage.
the nerds, I love them, but I have no idea how you do it.
The nerds of the world who could kind of go in and like access these things,
Yeah.
and instead created an entire user experience
Yes.
that anybody, regardless of their tech background, could access.
Mm-hmm.
And so a generative AI model, to actually answer your question and not just create this framing, is a machine learning model that takes and processes human text.
Mm-hmm.
And it will process that text and it will create some kind of content or some kind of output. Now, back in 2022, that content was all written. Since then, we've gone multimodal. It could be videos, it could be voices, it could be songs, it could be images,
Yep.
like you name it. As long as it's some kind of content, it can be created by this generative artificial intelligence.
And what's the best use cases that you've seen with Gen AI?
I know a lot of my students, again, professor hat now, they're using it as the new Google. Like, people aren't really using Google anymore. We're going to Perplexity. We're going to a bunch of other kind of tools that are a smarter AI first search. And I think that has whole different ramifications in like our traditional SEO thinking, right? Because now it's not like the SEO and the algorithm of a traditional search engine ranking all of your content, but it's now this AI system actually doing all the synthesizing of the content, where now it's more about this breadth, right? Because what the AIs will do when it does all of the individual retrieval of the documents and kind of give their AI summaries is, hey, let's try to fact check ourselves just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's just one document, right, here's Virgin AI. I'm not calling you out at all, but like we just have one website or one web page and it's a really, really shallow page. There's really nothing to then check the rest of the AI systems of, is this real? Is this actually a good fit? Is it not? And so it's going for like a breadth of content now versus just like one really optimized SEO option.
I think you're the first person to start to explain to me what the difference in the SEO is going to be. Like, one, I want to just share, like, Google was my jam for years. It was my jam for years. And then, no, it's ChatGPT and Perplexity. And Perplexity because it just has all the research behind it. But I do want to talk about traceability and other things. We'll get there. But to me, the art of marketing and the art of SEO is going to change dramatically, already starting to. So the way you just explained it was really interesting, that now it's the breadth of the information on the internet that is going to allow for more data to be processed and then I guess prioritized. Like how does that Because this is something that I know, like, I mean, we're working with some like major digital agencies, like SEO is part of their world, right?
Yeah.
And like, and they're very familiar with what's happening with AI, but they're like, we want to be on top of our game here because some of these companies, which I guess is a good thing, have thousands of pages of content.
Yep.
That's still a good thing, right?
Yep.
And especially if it's optimized. So can you give me a little bit more context of where that's going, or at least what you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not the expert here by any means. This is my hunch. I think there's still some SEO optimization going on, right? So let's think if you're using Google, the very beginning of any Google search now is some Gemini version of some kind of AI. I don't remember how they're branding it, but it's AI preview or something, AI overview, right? I have to believe that in their AI tasks, they have something with their Google search ranking algorithm that has been their bread and butter for the past 25 years.
Yes.
To be one of the many tasks or one of the many factors in determining what content we're bubbling up. Where it gets a little weirder, and this is, again, just, my tinfoil hat, right? My conspiracy theory moment, if you want to put it that way, is Microsoft and OpenAI are crossed together a little bit.
Yeah.
Very much so. And so I
partners.
suspect, yeah, they are. But I suspect that they're using Bing's version of SEO to help the ChatGPT out with some of their newer kind of source embedding, right? I don't know for sure. I haven't tested and tried that out. I could be completely off, but it can't just leverage anymore the content that it's been trained on, right? Because let's anchor this back to the way back in 2022 when OpenAI and ChatGPT
way back.
I know, 3 years ago.
Way
3
back,
years ago.
right? And like, God, it's only been 3 years, but yes.
But it feels like a lifetime at the same time. In 2022, when they first came out, you couldn't do any current events with OpenAI.
Yes.
If you said, hey, who won the Super Bowl? It wouldn't say the Philadelphia Eagles. It would go, 3 years ago it was insert whatever team that was. I think it was probably Kansas City, but
no, 3 years ago. Yeah, you're right. Woo. Kansas City, then Philly.
There you go.
It should have been the Washington Commanders, but I'm not. Shout out to Jaden Daniels. He had a great rookie season, and he used performance.
He did.
He used AI, and I mean, it just
the VR stuff. That's super cool.
And I want him. I'm going to put it out and manifest the universe that I want him speaking as a keynote at DC Startup and Tech Week because it just makes sense. So if anyone's listening.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. I make it happen. So we're going to do it. But anyway, it's just a great example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I want to move a little bit to agentic AI now. Right. And this is sort of where you and I bonded. I wasn't in your group, unfortunately, that day, but I was like, oh my God, she like, to me, it's like, this is our specialty. This is sort of our secret sauce, and there's so much that's still being built, right? And we know we're like in any of this stuff, we're at like the early stages of what is going to be an insane several years for all of us, right? AI agents is the future work.
Yeah.
And so people really, I mean, I do a lot of talks, you do a lot of talks. Both of us are part of, I guess you can share what you're working on at American University and sort of this Futurist Council you're on for the future work and education. I'm on the JFF Labs Future of Work, AI, and Humanities Council. To me, this is such an important thing. And I always kind of anchor it in what AI agents are and what they're going to be doing, because it's gonna change everything. So I would love your perspective on, let's start with what is an AI agent? Because I know you like to level set like me, and I love that. And like, where do you like, what has impressed you? What has like, what do you think it is that is where work is going to go because of it?
So AI agents are one of those interesting hot button topics. And I think it's because there's no true definition of what an AI agent is right now. Like we could poll a room. You could poll you and I right now probably, and my definition of an AI agent.
So
and
you
your
say it and I'll say mine.
So there's a few frameworks out there, right? And I think Anthropic Claude at the end of 2024 last year, right after they demonstrated their Cursor agent, where like basically their AI, you can use an API key and you can give Anthropic Claude access to your computer, to your systems, and you'll see your mouse start to move and go to the web and, if you put in, I think their demo was like, if you put in like a brown trench coat, it'll like go to Google and by itself, right? No prompting, no nothing, and type in brown trench coat, buy, shop, whatever. You could then say, it could then maybe ask you a question saying like, well, what's your budget, right?
Yeah.
You could say, I don't want to spend more than $150 on this trench coat, right? And then it'll start to navigate and figure out which trench coat is the best option for you to buy based on your preferences and other things like that. That's very unprompted, right? And so the first level of the framework is it's any kind of AI system that has an environment that will then just make actions off of that, right? And I don't love that framework because I think it's incredibly broad. And so you could have an AI that's a traditional predictive analytics model that we just trained this AI how to play chess, right? There's a whole bunch of them out there. Technically, that would be an AI agent, right? Because we have this computer whose environment is this chessboard, who has very specific moves, and it will, on its own, unprompted, figure out what the next best move is for this chess game.
You gave it a bunch of tasks, and it just figures out the next autonomous move. Yeah.
That also means things that are very, like IoT, like the Internet of Things, might borderline be an agent, right? Like a Roomba. What does it do? You click a button, and it will kind of haphazardly...
I love my Roomba. Thank God. It is haphazard.
Every now and then I'll bump into a...
It does eat my laces on my shoes.
Oh, that happens to me all the time. It goes boop, boop, boop.
But I'm like, thank God, because I don't want a broom.
Exactly. But like, is that then an AI agent? Like, it's a robotic version of an AI agent, but there's some kind of machine learning model embedded into the software.
Sure.
And it will move and, scan your room and your floor plan. And if there's a super dirty area, it might spend a little extra time because I am a mess when I eat on my sofa every now and then. There's a crumb of popcorn over there, maybe.
Well, let's own it. Let's own it. It's all good. But so are Teslas then, right?
Yeah, so then a Tesla would be, right? And so I think in that very broad sense, kind of everything and nothing that is a traditional or more generative AI model is or can be defined as an agent. Where I've been trying to shift this conversation is kind of these two tiers, right? You have AI agents that are kind of semi-autonomous, where you give more vague instructions and it will kind of just figure it out. And then you have other AI agents, which are very, very narrow in scope, where you say, here's this very defined set of tasks, right? If you want to think about the chess version, right?
Yes.
Here's your task list. Don't deviate from this, right? Like it has a very, very narrow view, a very, very narrow scope.
Like a knowledge agent.
Right.
There's different ways of also categorizing, right?
Yeah.
These types of agents.
And so I think that's where we're going. But anyway, what was your...
Well, again, I go back to where we are today is there's more semi-autonomous than fully autonomous in certain ways. But I agree with you, like from a robotic standpoint and others. And it's so crazy because I've also been around a lot of accelerationists in this space. So I know there's like a lot of underground things happening. Yeah. And there's things that have been solved for that we don't know on the mainstream side of things. But what I see is that over time, yes, they're narrow tasks. Then they're going to be collaborative tasks to actually create something autonomous. So, hey, you're the chief marketing officer of my business. I need to have a whole brand strategy done and then an optimized LinkedIn page and then a campaign on this product that we're about to go out. And then that literal system will act like 6 or 7 different roles in a marketing department and do the competitive research, the trend analysis, the brand messaging that will stand out, here's the optimal LinkedIn page and here's the copy. Like all those things will be done. And then the human will get the report and the analysis, and then over time, there will be like collaborations of AI agents. So you've heard the whole thing about there will be $1 billion company with maybe 7 executives and a ton of AI agents because they've been trained to do the work. And then management will also change in terms of people needing to manage these AI agents. Work is going to change in multiple ways. So the way I see it, Internet was the world of apps. AI is the world of AI agents. We're going to have, and the other beauty in AI agents is the skills that come along. So like when we were working on Magic ML, Jesse and I, like that's kind of what blew me away was like, okay, there's these foundational, just the way the workflows are going to work, right? And automation. And I had done a lot of work with like leadership in the coaching industry. It's $1 billion industry, but they've done a ton of email and marketing automation, Zapier, all those things. So like when I was thinking about automation initially, I was like, That's been done in other industries. The AI does take it to another level. And now multiple business industries are coming to sort of that baseline. But then when you start to think about ad personality, does this thing have reasoning? Does it have intent recognition? I know a CEO and his CTO created a sales agent, but basically it'd be listening in to a lot of conversations with permission, right? But it was like, it would allow them to say, hey, from their voice intonation, from the way their gestures were moving, like this person's serious or this person's not. Like, they're not, they might be too early in the funnel. And then that early in the funnel could then trigger a different sort of nurturing campaign compared to, like make sure you follow up with these 15 because they're on the cusp of needing you. You're solving a real problem for them. So for me, it's like, all of a sudden, there's these skills that get attached to agents that are like human beings, right? That are giving these CEOs and founders and business leaders and division leaders and managers insights that they've never had before. Now, it's just like another like, wow, like this is going to help me get to that outcome much faster than me being subjective in what I heard, right? So that's why I'm like, AI agents blow me away.
Yeah.
When they are done right, narrowly, when they become more autonomous and collaborative, there will need to be quality assurance. There will need to be humans in the loop until they won't. Yeah. I said, I have a whole business framework.
Yeah.
I was like, until they won't. But for now, and you and I, okay, so I want you to react to that.
Yep.
And I want to talk about timing.
Yep. So I fully agree with you in the sense that the AI agents are currently impressive, but in the near future will be blown away. And that's why I'm so passionate, I think, about thinking about the workforce changing.
Yes.
And getting everyone up to speed with AI. Because today, right now, this is the worst our AI will ever be.
That's right.
It's only getting better. And so if you are waiting for the AI to get better in order to start paying attention and using it, you're going to be too late. Because everybody right now who's figuring it out with the limited capabilities that the AI have today are going to be light years ahead of you when you then just try to start a year from now or 2 years from now.
I'm going to pause. I want you guys to hear what Angela just said. I've been sounding alarm for years, but this is the time. Like I'm going to the Agentforce conference from Salesforce. I mean, they're going to be agent marketplaces, right? Like creating a custom agent, creating and understanding and solving real business problems with them is going to get you way ahead of the game than, a year from now. And here is that golden opportunity. If you do it right, responsibly, safe with the partner who understands what they're doing. I just need to put it out there because it's such an important thing from a business perspective.
Yeah. No, I mean, I already fully agree. And I think the second piece of that right now is like not only how we're leveraging and using the AI agents today, but how we think about them going forward. We need to be very thoughtful with them. And I think we need to start paying more attention as to how we're quantifying the ROI or like the return on the investment that we're putting in these AI agents. And I think even still to today, I think a lot of the conversation is around time savings and productivity. And I think we need to get past that, right? Because whenever people hear time savings and productivity, yes, sure, we might be making you 100x marketer or 100x researcher or 100x insert your profession. But I think that branding becomes incredibly scary because I hear workforce replacement.
Yeah.
I'm going to get replaced by this machine and I'm not going to have anything to do. So where I think these things need to go and why Human in the Loop, at least for now, is like so essential and so important is because we're having the squeeze in the workforce right now where that entry level position is kind of collapsing on itself, right? We have AI agents who can code better than our software engineering interns or our first few year interns, right? We have marketing agents, I'm sure, that you can probably argue are at least at the same parallel level. It's incredibly disruptive in the financial industry portion, right? You can now work for a financial industry company and your entire first year is probably like PowerPoints, slide decks, and some research, right? Well, the research component can for sure be taken away by AI. Why? Because a lot of the research that you do is market filings, right? You can go grab all of those documents, have the AI synthesize it, come up with a deck. If you need it to be in a very specific format, guess what? You can give it some extra instructions to be formatted that way,
Yeah,
right?
and Gamma is a great AI tool that helps with presentation. I was just having a conversation with somebody who works at Boston Consulting, and she's like, my job is PowerPoint. It's going to be gone soon.
Yeah,
like,
literally.
Yeah, knowledge workers have it, really. But so finish your thought first.
Yeah. And so I think where this really kind of comes into the future of work is like right now, I think the ultimate goal is to have us be able to coexist with the AI, right? How can we interact and work and get comfortable with the AI? Because in the not so near future, I think we might start having either some of that augmentation where now the AI is your boss and now you're the agent kind of doing some of those other tasks that it's just not very good at, or vice versa, where you're now managing instead of a workflow of people, you're now managing a workflow of AI agents who are all doing individual tasks that you then kind of have to bubble up.
So what does that mean for roles? What does that mean for skills? If I'm a university student, which is your world,
Yep.
what are you sharing with the kids right now? And these are grown adult, they're young adults right now, and so I have some perspective, but I would love to hear.
So I have many thoughts on this. I think first, and I think the most scary is like, yes, we're seeing this like extra competition and like initial fresh seniors, just graduated, newly minted graduates trying to get jobs, right? Because like that is definitely an immediate skill area that is starting to feel a little uncertain or shaky or like questionable. I think the second fact of that is I think we're going to see our middle management flatten out. I don't think we're going to have as many middle management because I think that's, again, going to be where we can have some of those AI orchestrations kind of run our middle finance department, right? So I think organizations are going to get flatter. And I think the question is, where do you fit into that? The second thing I want to bring up is I think as we rethink and redefine this like AI-powered workforce that's being developed, there's two key things that I think go underreported. The first is human connection and being able to talk in a room and be a team player and build all of those soft skills up, because that is still our superpower that isn't going to be easy to be replaced by AI, right? We kind of talk about, this is like a whole nother aside. This isn't anything from a university job, but there's these like personality hires, right? And they're the people at your job who you just adore.
Yeah.
And want to be in the room with, and you want to do work for them because they're just the sunshine in the department. Like we need more people like that, where you can like build the connection, build the relationships, build that network up. And I think having those soft skills and having that network skill to build the communication across lines, across people of all different, perspectives is going to be the superpower that you bring. I think we're moving to more of a creator economy or like a gig work economy where your brand and the people who you can bring with you is going to be far more important and much more valuable than any hard technical skill.
Personal brand and AI automation to me is also, it's the future. So I love what you're saying. What's interesting, Angela, is that the art of networking and socialization got lost with the pandemic.
Yes.
So there's a group of, a generation of people who don't know how to do that well anymore, right? And then now this administration, right or wrong, is like everyone needs to go back to work. But it will allow for that again, right? Because you don't have as many options. And some people will still work from home and still have that culture, which is great, and the flexibility. But I think there was a loss of that, right? And I think, it was really interesting on Friday night. I had a Friday night jam with the Generative AI Collective in DC. I was such a nerd. I love it. But it was it was so cool. It was 30 of us from all walks of life, brilliant minds in the room. And like, we had different pods and we were talking about AI and the future of humanity, right? And like, it was like from a therapist to a consultant to somebody who works at a major nonprofit, whatever. It was like probably each one of us had 10 people on together. And I was just listening to their perspectives because I'm in the know. I've been through all the emerging tech cycles since the internet. So I'm almost like, I'm at a place of like, it's happening anyway. How can we shape it for good? That's like my stance because I know what's happening. And then the conversation though was like, we didn't ask for this. Like we don't want, and it's funny because I'm very much focused on the automation, the business implications, because I know I have personal conviction around this. My parents' business failed during the internet timeframes, but more of like, I see what's happening, right? But then when the humanoids and the robots and like sort of that world also gets interjected, and then we have Elon Musk saying that then by 2040 there are going to be more humanoids than people on this planet. That's when people are like, I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for any of it. Like, and like it's interesting because now I understand where people are like, I live off the grid.
Yeah.
Why they do that. Before I was like, why would you want to live off the grid? Like, why don't you like light? Or like, and not light, they're not Amish, but it was more of like, they just didn't want to deal with all of this almost forced upon technology versus like, let me live life the way I want to live it.
Yeah.
And I think we're probably going to see more of an influx of that. I think that'll be interesting. And I also think like the future work, it's like there will be people without jobs, right? There will be people, the world of like being happy and joyful. And how do you use that time? And where does the income come from?
Yeah. And that's where, I mean, if you think, I don't know if this was like, I think this was 2 election cycles ago. You had Andrew Yang come in with the whole universal basic income.
Yes.
And like, he is a tech individual. Like, he is seeing the road that's being built brick by brick right now. And kind of to your point, like, we're stuck with this, right? Like, there is no opt-in anymore. You got to get on the bus and you got to get going.
But you saw with Obama, you tried to do universal health care. I mean, there's difficulties in that, right? So it's like, and then it's like capitalism at its best, So
it's going to be a weird next few years.
It is. And like, and I think this is you and I both on different councils, like in gaining that perspective. That's why I love having conversations with as many people as I can from different walks of life, different perspectives, because, that's how you actually gain real market research outside of Perplexity and ChatGPT, all the good stuff. Real human connection. Oh my God, I could talk to you forever.
I know.
This is so good. I'm so happy we made this happen. I'm going to ask you 2 final questions.
Go for it.
What gets you so excited about AI and where we're headed? And what scares the crap out of you with where we're headed with AI?
Oh, man. Can it be the same thing? I think everything. Like, everything and anything. I think...
You like that phrase.
Apparently, yeah. No, I mean, it's just true, though. Like, this AI stuff, as I said earlier, it's the worst we're ever going to see it. And so I think the thing that excites me the most is, like, as we keep increasing how these AI models work and how they're integrated into these workflows and these automations, and seeing exactly what they can do at this much larger scale really excites me. Like, again, like the nerd in me is like, this is really cool. Like, this is super, super cool. But at the same time, I think you can have all these tech advancements, but because the way that our society is set up, it's not really set up to handle it right now, right? Like, if AGI comes out next week, okay, what does that mean? Like, we all don't have jobs now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, like, to your point, like, how do we make money? How do we live with this stuff? How are we rolling it out in a way that, like, we're not just getting rid of all of our life at the same time, right? So I think at the same time, it's all of the new advancements are super cool, super exciting. How you can automate everything, incredibly cool. And I think the rise of what we're going to see in the next year or so is going to be, as you said earlier, these micro companies, right? And these companies with 1 to 10 maybe employees or executives who are multi-billion-dollar companies just with an army of AI. Like, that's super exciting because I think that really knocks down a lot of like the barriers to entry into business. It knocks down a lot of the startup like initial costs and like just you don't need to be technical anymore to create your own tech startup. Like, you just don't. So I think that accessibility, but also at the same time, what does that mean for me and my job and my technical skills and all the things that we work so hard to build up,
So I lied. I have one question. I have one last question. And I think I'd love to get both of our perspectives because I don't fully know, but I'm like, I'd love to like talk this through with you. Is timing. And, you and I chatted a little bit previously on like, and timing in a sense, we're in a place where this is the biggest technological revolution of our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a place that we're, business fundamentally is changing and so is life. We are guiding people today on how, let's just talk about the business side, are going to change. But this technology keeps getting more and more powerful, right? You just talked about AGI. We haven't gotten into artificial general intelligence, so that will be a conversation for another day, right? What do we believe is like that timing where it's like, okay, the AI agents, the automation, the AI literacy, the responsible AI, all that stuff is going to be where these corporations and enterprises and mid-sized and small businesses need it until and when this new phase of AI agent collaborations and, I don't want to say things take over the world,
Yeah.
but it's just a different sort of world.
Mm-hmm.
What do we believe is the timing on that?
So who knows,
Yeah.
right? And I think if you go online and you read all the things, everyone who's like the tech leader at these various LLM companies, they're anywhere between like 6 months to like 3 years kind of in the horizon. They're like, definitely for sure, we already have it. Now, how much of that
But you're
is-
talking about AGI
I'm talking about our
specifically.
AGI specifically.
Okay.
Yes, which I think is that first stepping stone.
Can you just share what AGI is if we're going to go there?
Yeah, or do you want to pause that for like another conversation?
No,
Okay.
just share it.
So AGI is artificial general intelligence. And so as we're talking about all these agents being very narrow in scope, this is kind of that next level where instead of needing to have very narrow context windows, it kind of just knows how to do everything and anything all at once, just as you and I as a human would do, right? It can see, it can feel things, it can
Be sentient.
in some kind of manner. Now, how do we know if we've hit AGI? That's the $1 million question, because there is no real marker for when we've hit it. As of right now, there's a handful of tests that we can kind of like prep the LLMs for. So it can take the LSAT, it can take these other tests that are like kind of one component of maybe how we get to know if we've hit AGI. But getting back to the actual question, right? Like all of the tech leaders who are actually building the underlying technology we're all leveraging seem very convinced that it's moments away from being developed. Now, that doesn't mean that A, it hasn't already been achieved and they just aren't telling us. And B, it doesn't mean that the second that they figure it out, it'll be released in the same commercial sense that like OpenAI did back in 2022. I think by 2030, we'll have access to those kind of things and those kind of models, but I don't think we're going to see it in that as immediate time frame as the noise online is saying.
Yeah. I think it's going to take a few years for a transformation. And corporations and enterprises, mid-sized businesses, it takes time.
It does.
Right? And I think there's a more than handful of people now that are in the know. It really becomes a decision of, do you want to be an early adopter? And I actually, at this point, to me, it's not early enough. There's now information.
Yeah.
Obviously, regulation is starting. I don't know about the US, but EU regulation, other, there's literacy opportunities, people who are really quote unquote experts. I don't know if they're fully experts in this new phase, including but there are definitely people who understand, including Virgin, just how to guide you to where we are in this phase and the importance of it. But I guess I think now, being through some of these cycles, it's like the next 5 years is it's when people are going to really switch over. The people who are in the next year taking this stuff seriously will be the front runners. There will be many businesses that stay stagnant or fail because they're not paying attention. It's just the truth, right? Now, I think after 5-7 years, then there will be a whole other shift. And again, in those 5-7 years, there will be the next phase of AI and the next phase of humanoids and whatever that means labor-wise. You're right. We don't know what we don't know.
But this is, I think, why I'm so excited about it.
Yeah.
And why I love the teaching and the education component. Because the students who I'm teaching now, they're going to be the ones figuring this out.
Correct.
They're going to be the ones in the workplace. They're going to be the ones driving the AI initiatives because they're going to know enough about how to use it responsibly and ethically and reasonably, right? They'll know how to implement it, how to coexist with the AI. And then they'll be the ones to kind of solve those hey, you know what? Maybe we try it in this new way. Or hey, maybe we try it in this other way, right? Because they're thinking about it in a completely different way than how you or I or all of these other more established business experts who are now trying to put AI into our kind of established systems instead of starting from scratch. We know nothing, right? Little Bambi, big-eyed, wide-eyed. The world is our oyster. How do we do this, right? I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in those next 5 years as we start getting that education pipeline into the workforce too.
No, I love that, Angela. And I'm going to leave you with this. It's because of professors like you who are taking the time educating students on what AI means by industry, not just theory. And I think it's important that there is a train the trainer exercise. Without education in AI, there won't be that, right? Not all the students have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think I applaud American University for taking action. I know a lot of the local schools here are doing the same. And then there's quantum, but we don't have to go there. But I think if you can take anything away, that level of education is such an important thing, both from students to CEOs, founders, divisional leaders, employees, like all of us, right? Like that's how we're going to work through this next phase of, I don't know, amazingness, chaos, beauty. I don't know.
It'll for sure be chaotic, but hopefully the good chaos.
Yeah. So, Angela, thank you so much for being on my podcast, the AI CEO podcast. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. You left so much gold for my community. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. And so I really hope you enjoyed this episode of the AI CEO podcast. I look forward to seeing you next week. That's a wrap for this episode of the AI CEO podcast. If you found today's conversation valuable, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. It helps me reach more leaders like you and continue bringing in top AI-first founders, industry experts, and visionary CEOs to share their insights. AI is evolving fast, and the CEOs who harness it today will lead tomorrow. Stay ahead of the curve, keep learning, and keep building. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.